Good evening, everybody. Maybe take a chance for the last folks to grab their seats here. My name is Jeff Seminoff. It's my distinct pleasure to welcome everybody tonight. I work for NOAA, National Marine Fisheries Service, down in La Jolla. And I merely say that because I don't know how many people in the audience have just come for this talk or were here earlier. So I'm just going to assume that it's a whole new crowd. So I just want to give a little context there. If you haven't been here the last 2 days, I'm sorry. I feel like it has been a really momentous couple of days, building on day one with a series of workshops that were hosted by some wonderful colleagues in Cassandra Davis and Sabrina Mashburn and Suzanne Graham. And just we ended yesterday evening with this a new session which we want to bring to other meetings called the Origin Stories session. So Suze, if you're here, what a fantastic idea that was. And then just kicking back into gear this morning with a totally action-packed day. I believe it was 21 talks over the course of about, 5 hours or so, with lunch mixed in there, and heard everything from green turtle research to the use of cameras on tops of turtles, from green turtle management to loggerheads in the Southern California Bight. So just a wide variety of things. We saw an amazing short film by John Dutton about leatherbacks, so trying to shoehorn every species into the program today, and I feel like we did a pretty good job, and I'm just really proud of what we've been able to accomplish. And you know, I really want to thank a few people first before I move on here. And first of all, the Aquarium of the Pacific, thank you so much for the wonderful space. The AOP IT folks laboring yesterday and today behind the scenes to keep things going. Huge thanks. I want to also thank SoCal Sea Turtles and Sabrina Mashburn for helping be a sponsor for this event and being sort of that nimble arm of NOAA or the aquarium that allows us to make purchases or do things that sometimes large organizations can't do on the fly like we need to have done at times. I want to thank NOAA. Again, the support both for me personally to allow me to be here, and I've got a lot of NOAA colleagues in the crowd right now from Southwest Fisheries Science Center, but also from West Coast Regional Office, just 6 good stone throws away from where we are right now. So, you know, NOAA, from that opportunity that ability to give us the opportunity to be here, but also to come to the plate with some financial support was huge. And this event, I think it's pretty momentous because in some senses it's way over half funded by crowdsourcing, by people like everybody that are sitting in the audience today. And so I don't know the tally, but I want to say it was about or a little bit more than 100 individuals that, you know, donated everything from $5 to $100. And I think it's a great example of how just a village of the mass of getting everybody together to contribute a little bit can make something so marvelous like this happen. So, you know, it's such a like it's a little bit profound for me to be here right now. And then lastly, I want to thank the rest of the organizing committee that have been a part of this. Lynn Massey, Christina Fay, Sabrina Mashburn, Justin Greenman, Tracy Tempest, Suzanne Graham, and then the person that when I'm freaking out and I'm like stressed and I just look at her and she carries herself in such a fantastically calm way that just makes all the rest of us take a deep breath and realize everything's going to be okay, Cassandra Davis. And so Cassandra, thank you so much for everything. And before I move on, just can I give let's do a round of applause just for the support of this whole organization, this whole movement for making this happen today. So this has been long in coming, and I say that because sea turtles, I've been at NOAA for 20 years, and when I first got here, thanks to Peter Dutton, it was still sea turtles on the West Coast in the grand scheme of turtles in the United States was this very small thing, like, yeah, they got a few turtles over on the left coast. And in fact, what we see now is that it's way bigger than that. And things that, you know, Margie Stinson and Peter Dutton started in the 70s and 80s, we're having symposia now. And you know, I think I'm not the only one here that hopes that this is not the last and just really the first of many more. So to me, that's just the initial spark of something that's a lot bigger. And the other reason I think it's been building is that through the efforts that have happened from the US government or foreign governments or community members or conservationists or people trying to reduce bycatch, there have been such a multifaceted movement to try and reduce sea turtle mortality and recover sea turtle populations. And I'm not ready to say that they're recovered yet, but species like green turtles, especially here in the Eastern Pacific, are making an incredible comeback. And we're starting to see them in nooks and crannies throughout Southern California that we would have never imagined to see sea turtles before. And Lynn Massey today gave a talk on the citizen science and how people are reporting the turtles that they're seeing in their, literally like their own backyards. And the quotes that sort of resonate in my head are things like, I've been living in California for 60 years, I didn't even know turtles existed in California. Or I've been a surfer for 47 years at Solana Beach and I've never seen a sea turtle before and I've seen my first green turtle ever. So things like that, like everybody, the community, the whole just Southern California region has this whole new sort of natural resource that I think we never even thought was there before. And when I first got to NOAA in 2002, we knew green turtles were in San Diego Bay, but I always thought it was like California's best kept natural resource because nobody knew about it. And it was kind of cool to just have our little private Idaho in San Diego Bay. But now it's undeniable that turtles are everywhere. And so when I think about the movement of what's happening and the just progression of sea turtle conservation in California, I just can't imagine that there'd be anybody better than Jay Nichols to give the talk today. And Jay, he really needs no introduction for most of us. I mean, his accolades, his accomplishments are just off the charts. His publications, his popular press and media, his lecture series that's global is it's amazing. He's obviously an internationally recognized scientist and speaker, incredibly inspirational, thought-provoking. The Blue Mind Initiative. I hope we all have that. Does everybody have blue marble? Can we see it? Right on. You know, this is something, I have to say that the Blue Mind Initiative, for me, just as a quick anecdote, I walk my dogs every day at a place called Fiesta Island in San Diego, and on those high tide days when I cannot walk on the beach and I have to walk up on the shore, like away from the beach, I do not get the same pleasure as when I'm walking on the beach for my mile-long walk. So it's real. This idea of water and the importance of water and our own well-being and our own psychological sort of well-being, it's undeniable in my opinion. But maybe some of the things you don't know about Jay are that he's one of the absolute pioneers in sea turtle research and what we call in-water research that he started in the early 1990s. I happened to be on his side at the time, but the work that was being done largely throughout the world in the early 90s was so focused on nesting beaches, and really nobody was in the water because it was harder. Like, how do you go catch turtles in the water? I'm just going to hang out and have the turtles crawl up to me, which is very difficult as well, but it's a different beast than having to create the logistics to go get those animals. But from the early pioneering of the research in water to discovering and sounding the alarm on the incredible bycatch of loggerhead turtles in the Gulf of Vio on the Pacific coast of Baja. I mean, that's something that today our international community and the US-Mexico sort of binational relations are very focused on trying to reduce that problem. And it's a problem that Jay sounded the alarm to back in the early 1990s. And then I think maybe a precursor to how we got to where we are right now was what I consider the most famous turtle in the world. And this is a turtle named Adelita, which is a turtle that was caught by a fisherman about that big, brought to a tank in a town called, a small, dusty fishing village called Bahia de Los Angeles, which is near and dear to my heart, and put in a tank and grew and grew and grew, and finally it was able to be released through Jay's leadership and sealing the deal to get a satellite tag from Fish and Wildlife Service to put it on that turtle. It was released on the Pacific coast of Baja, and that turtle swam pretty much as a crow flies to Japan. I believe it was about 10,600 kilometers in about 278 days, so it's 28 kilometers a day if the math is right, thereabouts. So it just, what it did, not only it showed the marvelous sort of ability of turtles to migrate such great distances, but it connected 8 nations. And just like that connected nations, I think with the stuff that Jay is doing sort of connects people and connects communities. And Adelita is so famous because it wasn't just that tract that sat in a publication, a dusty academic publication that was just there for only the academics to read. It was something that through Jay, it became this multimedia sensation. And it was really that, to me, was that first example of how Nichols was able to bridge the scientific world with just the rest of us, so that we could have a glimpse into what scientists are doing, and maybe one of the greatest examples of the marvelous nature of wildlife, or of sea turtles specifically. And lastly, I want to close with just a quick anecdote, and that's my history with Jay. And we met each other in a dark basement hallway in a building called BioEast at University of Arizona back in 1992. And we forged a friendship that has lasted to this day. And at those times, we had this great goal of guiding trips to Mexico, and let's get students to fund the work, or let's get just anybody to fund the work. So this sort of crowdsourcing event. And together, we went to every fraternity, every sorority, every church group, every community engagement we could, probably 3 or 4 nights a week, just talking turtles. This is back in the day of slides and a slide carousel on the old Kodak thing, and our slides were used so much that they started to fade. Okay, so this is something that Jay has had this incredible passion to bring science to people for the last 30 years that I've known him. And so with that, it's just such a profound life milestone for me to be able to introduce my dear friend, Jay Nichols.
Thanks, brother. You gonna stay up here with me?
No, I'm going back here.
Okay.
I'm going to the top.
I don't know if I can handle it without you. So any questions? That's my talk. You pretty much said it all, covered all. I mean, I was born in 1967. I forgot to say that, but other than that, we got it covered. Thank you, Jeff. The feeling is mutual. Alternative title for my talk, Your Brain on Ocean, Your Brain on Sea Turtles, or otherwise, How Unstoppable Sea Turtle Nerds Are Made. And many of us put ourselves in that unstoppable sea turtle nerd category. It's a pleasure to be invited. It's an honor. Congratulations to all the organizers, all of the volunteers, to this incredible aquarium for just putting on a good event, excellent, unprecedented event. Some amazing science, the work on the threats to sea turtles, the solutions, the success stories, the origin stories, just all around 360-degree phenomenal contribution. As far as symposia go, really felt good, huh? That's how I saw it. What I want to do with the time we have together is explain why you have a blue marble. Jeff started on that. I want to tell you a little more of a turtle story. Jeff also started on that. I want to tell you a little bit. I want to do a little read along. That's why the chair is there. And then I want to explain some more about Blue Mind and kind of challenge you to apply this pretty cool science based on ancient tradition, ancient wisdom traditions. Apply it to your work, apply it to your life. If you work at an aquarium, apply it to what you do here. If you work in conservation, by all means add it to your toolkit so that we can all live a little bit better at this kind of challenging time to be a human being on planet Earth. I think we might all agree with that statement. We got some uncertainty, some extra stressors and anxieties, but we get to be here on this beautiful little blue marble planet. So I love this photo. This is from the Sea Turtle Conservancy. You could picture yourself there at whatever age you may want to picture yourself. You can picture your children or kids you know or grandchildren there. And I just love looking at that photo and thinking, what's that little guy thinking? What's he feeling? Is he having a moment? Are we all the reason why we're in this room is because at some point somewhere with some part of the natural world, we felt like that little guy, right? We felt small, but big at the same time, and inspired, and in awe, and kind of calm. And maybe we bonded with an animal or with some wildlife or a place, a special place. It might have been a tree, could have been a patch of ocean or a pond. I just love that, reflecting on that. And fast forward, this is Chuy Lucero, Don Jesus Lucero, Baja California fisherman. He had a moment like that little guy, except he was an adult, and he met a baby sea turtle for the first time. And if he were standing here telling his story, he would say, I looked at that turtle, I had it in my hand, I knew my job was to get it to the ocean, and I said, wow. That's exactly what Chuy would say, wow. And he has not looked back, and he's one of the most effective, powerful, engaged, and successful conservationists I know, and glad to call him a friend. So some of you may know Don Chuy. So I want to explain why you have a blue marble. So take your blue marble, and if you don't have one, cozy up with the person next to you that may have one, and hold it out at arm's length in front of you. And depending on how long your arms are, that's what we look like from 1,000,000 miles away. If you could fly 1,000,000 miles away and turn back, look out the back window or rearview mirror of whatever you happen to be flying in, you would see our home planet, and it would look about that big. I did the math. It's pretty close. You may have to adjust slightly, again, depending on your arm length. But that's what we look like from 1,000,000 miles away. And you'll notice a couple things. Kind of small, right? Small little blue marble kind of thing. And blue. So we live on this small water planet. And as far as we know, it's pretty unique. You don't get another one of these. Everything we know went down here. All the good stuff and bad stuff and fun stuff and sad stuff, it's all happened here on this tiny little blue sphere covered mostly by water. So it's a water-based planet. NASA is searching for other life in the universe, and they have this acronym. It's FTW, follow the water. So they're looking for the sign of water as a proxy for the possible sign of life. So that's kind of cool. And the reason they're doing that is because it works here really well. There's a lot of life going on here. And if you take your marble and draw it close as you can to your eyeball without touching your eyeball, please, and look through it at one of these lights. I'll take my glasses off, like it's a telescope. Yeah, wow, it's like trippy even, kind of. You can look through your marble, and it's kind of like a kaleidoscope, and you can see the cracks and the bubbles and the irregularities. And if that were that much seawater, there would be literally tens of millions of organisms, many of them bacteria and viruses, some of them very, very small microorganisms. But that much seawater is just teeming with life. It's alive. And every known element in the universe would be represented in that much seawater. All right, so we're going to come back to these blue marbles, but I love giving out blue marbles as a gesture of gratitude and as a way to teach people about the wonders of our water planet. And sometimes when the PowerPoint goes out, you still have an AV tool. You can kind of lean back and say, okay, I don't need PowerPoint. We got marbles, and let's talk more about marbles. There's all kinds of things you can do that we won't get into them all. So I also love this question. So like asking people sometimes on an airplane, stranger, it's a great icebreaker. It's a great way to start a conversation. So what's your water? Another way of saying that is, what's the water you first fell in love with? Now, maybe you have to go back a ways. What's the water you long for? You know, Semenoff was talking about taking his dog for a walk and he can't get to the water's edge. It's not as good of a day. But what's the water you can first remember saying, I love the way this feels, right? Or what's the water you're thinking about, right, like you first thought of? So let's hear a few report outs. So left side of the room, anybody want to rate the lake? Excellent. I love the lake. Anybody else? Bath water, nice one. Anybody else on the left side? Pardon? Boneyards. Excellent. So the lake, the bath, and the boneyards. Middle group. PG. Middle group. Which? Mountain stream. Does the mountain stream have a name, Larry? Okay, there we go. Nice. What other water? Ponds. Does the pond have a name? No. The nameless ponds of the world. How about this side? Merced River. Glaciers. All right, nice. So we've got ice and snow and ponds and creeks and bathtubs and lakes and rain. Abalone Cove. So when we start thinking about the water we love, maybe the water where we learn to swim, and we think about who took us there, who is your guide at that pond, who said, hey, I'm going to the lake, why don't you come with me? It's going to be really cool. Who's your guide? Some of those people may not be with us it's any longer, but they taught us, they gave us the gift of a love for water. And they deserve to be thanked for that. So that's part of how we get into this conversation. It can get pretty personal and kind of emotional pretty quickly. When I think of my water, I think of my dad immediately. So you say, what's your water, Jay? I say, that guy. He passed on his love of water to us, taught us to swim, taught us to go to sail, to surf, to kayak. All the things he loved to do. He's a water guy. And my kids were the recipients of my love for the water. I passed it on to them. So there's Julia in Baja with Grupo Tortuguero measuring a turtle, and Grace in Indonesia with a head-started turtle. Fast forward a little bit, and there's Chewy, Don Chewy, with Julia at a Grupo Tortuguero meeting. And then that's Grace and Don Chewy in a cafe planning a Grupo Tortuguero meeting. At least Grace thought Chewy was her assistant and helping her with the process. And they had matching hats, and she carried her pen in the brim of her hat. But really the point is, through this connection, through this falling in love with water and passing it on to the next generation, we build so much. The social connections, the lifelong friendships. Jeff told the story of how we met, and we stayed friends, and we bonded around water and turtles. And we need to talk about that much more as part of the value of doing conservation. So Jeff mentioned Adelita, and I'm going to take a kind of a different look at this turtle's migration. So summer of 1996, our team, together with a bunch of fishermen in Santa Rosalita, the Pacific side of Baja, got the satellite transmitter from Telonix. It was actually a reused recycled transmitter, an ST6 for George's benefit, for transmitter geeks. Richard Biles gave it to us. We weren't sure it was going to work. Antonio and Betty Resendez had raised this turtle from a smaller size in captivity for a decade. And we took her to the coast. We had George's paper on how to attach a transmitter to a sea turtle in one hand, a bottle of Pacifico in another hand, and then that leaves no hands. So you had to have some other helpers around to help with the epoxy, following very closely. Got the transmitter on the turtle. Turtle was named Adelita after the daughter of the fisherman who helped us, Martin Arce, his daughter Adelita, who is now a young woman. Got the turtle into the ocean, released her. So there's lots of cool science. It's published, it's out there, we shared the data. Oops, I didn't want to do that just yet. Sorry, give away the track. So what you will see here, this is the metaphoric interpretation of this biological activity. We released her into the ocean, and this is my read on it, and this is a human take on what a turtle may have been thinking, so apologies in advance. Released the turtle into the ocean off the side of the panga, and she swam. The tank that she was in was sort of smaller than this circle here, and she swam about the diameter of her tank, and then she pauses. Now just watch the video as it loops around. She just kind of pauses, as if to say, and this is the stretch part, I don't know what she was thinking, in fact, but I can imagine she thought, she was acclimated to that tank, she thought, okay, a wall. There should be a wall here. She pauses. She's in the Pacific Ocean, far from the shore, no walls. Finding no wall, she continues to swim. And on the other side of that imaginary wall, she finds an open Pacific Ocean and continues to swim for 368 days, as Jeff said, about 2,000 kilometers all the way home, as we now know, to Japan. So that's the turtle story, but the metaphor is, in our lives there are walls. Some of them are real. Some of them you can't walk through. If you try to run through them, you will hurt yourself. But some of them are imaginary. And even in a little turtle brain, they actually do have small brains, the turtle imagined a wall for a moment. She imagined it so clearly that she stopped swimming. She paused. And then she continued. And I like to think about Adelita in that lesson of what are our imagined walls that stop us from doing cool things, from stop us from doing important things, from stop us maybe from doing the right thing or doing the risky thing. And earlier in the symposium, that was discussed, the importance of trying things, of taking risks, of when the world is saying, no, you can't do that, saying, hey, but I'm going to try it, and crowdfunding or scraping things together and getting it going. And so what I think of when I look at Adelita and her swimming away from that boat and then making a 12,000 kilometer journey across the ocean, it's just this amazing metaphor for swimming through imaginary walls. So this is kind of personal. We're going to go deep here. What are your walls? What are the walls you still need to swim through? We heard during the symposium about some of the origin stories, the walls that people broke through in order to make things happen. But what are the walls that we're facing now? Insects. That's an interesting wall. The insect. Okay, we'll stick with insects. Okay, well, we won't shout out maybe we just quietly think of our walls. Why don't we do that? And we had that conversation earlier, didn't we? Yes. So think of you can write it down, you don't have to yell it out. But we have our walls that we want to break through. One of those for me was writing this book. I pitched it to some publishers. I tried to get the idea funded from some foundations, and I got a lot of eyeball rolls. Like, okay, California hippy-dippy guy, why do we need to know about the mind and water and the brain on ocean? What is that? That doesn't sound like science. And it was somewhat frustrating and somewhat embarrassing to have that many eyeballs rolling at you. So imagine you're standing in a room like this, and everybody rolls their eyes at you at the same time. It's really unnerving. And it actually makes a really weird sound. So I hope you're never in a position to have that many eyeballs rolling in your general direction. But I persisted, and I'm going to talk a bit more about what Blue Mind is, but I want to read a little bit of it just from the preface. Truth be known, I tried my hardest to give this project away to those with better training, better brains, better resumes for the job. There were no takers. So I built upon what I've learned about people and water from my teachers, Herman Melville, Joshua Slocum, Chewy Lucero, Don Thompson, Lauren Isley, Jacques Cousteau, Paclahani, Wade Hazel, Pablo Neruda, Juan de la Cruz Villejos, Sylvia Earle, Mike Orbach, Cecil Schwalbe, and Mary Oliver. Mostly We've connected the dots that we could find and worked to make the best sense of the patterns that emerged. The goal has been less about providing absolute answers and more about asking new questions. Questions that hopefully, in your capable hands, lead to creative new ways of exploring living well together on our water planet. So that's from the preface of Blue Mind. This is kind of a little bit of a setup. I wanted somebody else to write this book. I wanted Oliver Sacks, the late great neurologist, to write this book, if you're familiar with him, water-loving guy. And he said, it's a fine idea, you do it. And he was an intellectual hero of mine, and I took that very seriously. So 5 years later, brought him a copy of this in New York before he passed away. I want to read, I'm going to go back to Blue Mind, but I want to read this book to you. And this could be, I don't know how, I haven't read this to a group before, and that's why this chair is here. We're going into like a Mr. Rogers mode. I always wanted to say that. So some of you, some of the students have their own copies I gave them, so you can read along if you want. For the rest of you, I got your back. So I wrote a letter to my daughter the day after she left for college, and that is the basis of this book. It's called Dear Wild Child, and she's the wild child. We built your house around you when you were still growing inside your mother, in the shade of ancient redwood trees by a creek not far from the ocean. We built your house stout and soulful to protect and raise you to be strong and healthy. Hardwood and stone, heavy truss and steel bolt, knob and switch. We never locked it. We didn't have to. It never really belonged to us. We filled it with books, guitars, a piano, seashells, feathers, and animals, and memories. You can see a turtle shell on the piano there and a skull on the shelf. That one down there to the left, that's a sea lion skull that Hoyt Peckham gave me. You learning to walk, the wide, worn Douglas fir floorboards holding you up, loving voices singing sweet lullabies, the wind singing through the canyon, the trees and the chimney, the fireplace crackling and warming us as we slept, collecting eggs and cooking pancakes at dawn, you growing taller and stronger like a little sapling. In our canyon, you discovered salamanders, swimming holes, fairy houses, buckets of plums, heart-shaped rocks, crawdads, bright stars, and owl calls. Your home grew brighter and wilder with people, great parties, friends' weddings, holiday gatherings, and sleepovers. Hundreds of visitors, beautiful music, delicious dinners, and rich, deep conversations. I'd hoped this house would be yours someday. It stood strong through droughts, floods, and earthquakes. You were there for all of it. Oops. Forgot that. Your home in the redwoods by a creek, not far from the ocean, was as old as you were. Last night, the wildest, most beautiful lightning storm I've ever seen blew across the ocean and through our canyon. The lightning ignited a wildfire. The unstoppable flames roared over the ridges and climbed the tall trees. The fire took back your house. I wish I could have protected it, but I couldn't and I didn't. All that remains standing is the ledge stone chimney that sings with the wind through the trees. Your house served its original purpose. You are healthy and strong because of your home. It grew you. You are made of hardwood and stone, bright stars, and the wind's song. You are made of plums, Mill Creek water, and Pacific salmon. You are made of sea salt, piano keys, and mountain lion screams. Your house might be gone, but you will carry your home with you wherever you go. You are my wild child. Love, Dad. The end. I wanted to share that, and I know it doesn't have much to do with sea turtles, but if we raise the next generation to fall in love with nature, as we should, passionately and unstoppably, they inevitably will have their hearts broken, as we have. Anybody who studies nature has seen things that break our hearts. The past couple of years have been filled with loss of different kinds. Not everybody lost their home. Some lost a dream, a loved one, a plan, a graduation, a job. There's all kinds of uncertainty kind of built into life these days that might be different than it was a couple of years. And I wanted to share that story because I think it sets the stage for the kind of resilience that nature offers us. The idea of raising wild children to love nature, and maybe they have their hearts broken when nature hits hard, when things change, when there's loss. But we're here on this little blue marble planet, and it's the only one we get. And so we need to bounce back. And the stories that we've heard for the past few days about the people who have devoted their lives, I mean, I think of George and Larry and Peter and Barbara and our mentors, people who have been at this for so long, and you can't stop them. They just keep going. And they've seen things that are heartbreaking. But we keep moving because of the love we have for these animals and for our home planet and for each other. So I want to talk a little bit about Blue Mind, but the best way to understand Blue Mind is to start with Red Mind. So nobody has a red marble. I didn't give out any red marbles. There's only blue marbles. But Red Mind has become our new normal. It's the anxious, always connected. You wake up and look at your phone, your email, your text messages. You're busy all day. There's anxiety and stress. We're overstimulated and overcommitted. This is a New Yorker cartoon. I love this one. They call it monkey mind. Have you ever felt monkey mind at any point in your career, in your life, right? Where you just feel like you just can't keep up and you're trying, but you're kind of moving backwards. There's the original monkey who invented monkey mind. So even the monkeys are addicted to technology. Right? It is a serious problem, not the monkey problem, but the human technology addiction problem. It's a very serious problem. The American Psychological Association does an annual report called Stress in America. In 2019, anxiety and stress and burnout were at a record high. 2019. Remember that? It's hard to even remember 2019. Like, when was that? A few years back. And has it gotten any better since then? Not so much. It's gotten way weirder and more anxiety and more stress, more burnout. There's this thing called quiet quitting. Our first responders, our nurses, our teachers are burning out. And that stress affects our health. Right? If we don't manage that stress, we fall apart at the cellular level. So stress is implicated in 60% of diseases and disorders. The chemical cortisol that happens under stress, the bad kind of stress, right, impedes healing by encouraging inflammation. So there's the biological component. We now know a lot more about the science of stress. You talk to a sea turtle biologist about stressed out turtles, it's not good for them. They get sick. It's the same thing for us. And it's also the same thing for those monkeys with the cell phones. If we stay in that red mind for too long, we end up in what I call gray mind. And blue mind, red mind, and gray mind certainly is an oversimplification of some very complicated stuff going on with our emotional health. But it makes it easier to talk about, because people don't like to talk about mental health and emotional health. And not to be stereotypical, but especially dudes don't like to talk about how they feel. So if you can color code it, it's easier to talk about. Gray mind is burnout, breakdown, languishing. So would you like some extra foam with your burnout? You know, that's sort of another New Yorker cartoon. And that's where a lot of people are right now. And some people aren't even sure why they're feeling this way. So we have this higher level of stress leading to a higher level of burnout, even among the people who are taking care of us, the physicians, the nurses, the first responders, the ER workers, people in healthcare, the therapists. But we have a tool for our toolkit that's super underutilized, and it's water in all of its forms. The wild kind, the domestic kind, the bathtub, the urban kind, the fountains. There's some wonderful fountains right outside the door here. You can sit by them and it soothes you. But also the virtual water, an IMAX theater, or a painting, or a poem, or a book, right? A song. And even the imaginary water, the water you thought of when I asked you, what's your water? You close your eyes and almost feel it. So what we want to do is take this idea of blue mind and the science and practice behind it and put it into action, right? So the ask here is that whether you work at an aquarium or a sea turtle project, in a school, or with your family or your business, take these ideas and put them into action. When we spend time near, in, on, or underwater, it reduces our stress, helps us focus, actually, helps us calm ourselves, connect with each other, connect with ourselves, and it boosts our creativity, makes us more curious, and it makes us more compassionate. That feeling of awe and wonder activates the part of us that does compassion. The feeling of awe and wonder makes us more pro-social. So you start to think about it, well, where does a lot of that awe come from? Not just sea turtles, but turtles and water, the ocean, the sunsets, the lakes, the rivers, all of those places. So what if we made Blue Mind common knowledge? What if we took Blue Mind science and practice and applied it to sea turtle conservation? Because everybody knows that you feel a little better when you're out there with those animals. And I warned you about dropping your marble over there. That everybody's going to know, and then it's going to end up here. That feeling is just so awesome. The first turtle you saw on that morning or that night, the first time you were out on turtle patrol and you got to see the turtle coming out of the ocean or returning to the ocean, or the first time you saw those hatchlings emerge from their nest, and it just rocked your world. That feeling is medicine, straight up. It's good neurochemistry. Recently, this article in the New York Times written by Kate Dwyer about the author Lydia Yuknavovich. She's an incredible writer. But I just highlighted a few words there. Sea turtle changed everything. A relational exchange with a being that was not human. You can make a story that releases you from the tyranny of your past. And we all need to be released from the tyranny of our past in some way, shape, or form. Maybe even just our recent past in what we've all been through in the past few years. And nature can help us do that. Sea turtles can transport us. Let's cross the planet. There's another article in the Australian, also from this just recently, from Monique Rafi. And she wrote, she was mesmerized. She felt sacred. She was spellbound and love-struck. She encountered this mama leatherback, and it was life-changing. Her pain was suddenly gone, and she made lifelong friends. Does that sound familiar? Does that describe some of your relationship with nature? Making friends, feeling awestruck, spellbound, love-struck, being released from the tyranny of trauma. Turtles, the ocean, nature, whales, forests, they do this for us, and we need to talk about it better. Antonio, a fisherman who joined Grupo Tortuguero, and I took this picture of him, He was hugging that turtle like his life depended on it. He was just so happy to be part of sea turtle conservation after living in a community where sea turtles were primarily consumed. It was part of their tradition, part of their diet. But he was so happy to be part of bringing them back from the brink. This is my friend Rudy Reyes. He's a veteran recon Marine, and he works with a group called Force Blue. And they work with some sea turtle projects on the East Coast. Not only is he completely ripped and just like one of the most fit human beings I've ever met, he's carrying a lot of post-traumatic stress and all of the baggage that goes along with that. And these turtles are his medicine. Scuba diving is his medicine, straight up, no holds, absolutely 100% his medicine. His service now to the ocean, restoring coral reefs and sea turtle communities, is medicine for his heart, his mind, and his body, and his soul. So our veterans, our first responders that serve us and run towards danger on our behalf, they need this desperately. They're in big trouble after the years that we've had. This young guy at the South Carolina Aquarium, that moment, just a bonding moment with a sea turtle that had been rescued and is being rehabbed. We have those moments daily if we work with sea turtles, but we get to see other people also have those bonding moments. Brianna was a patient at a hospital in San Francisco, and it's not just a gaming headset. While she was going through a very painful procedure, she was watching dolphins swim, and the research shows that it helps children reduce their pain. The virtual reality environment of nature helps patients reduce their pain, right? Maybe in conjunction with more traditional methods, with pharmaceuticals, but it works. The research is clear. So if virtual nature helps us reduce our pain, imagine what real nature. So VR is good, but RR is even better, real reality. I'm a big fan of real reality. A bunch of books have come out. Last Child in the Woods by Richard Louv. Flo Williams wrote a wonderful book called Nature Fix. And then my book really focuses in on water as a therapeutic mode and the neuroscience and the neuropsychology of that connection and how it works and how we can apply it. Needless to say, when you go to the ocean to get your Blue Mind on and the gate is closed, or even worse, the water is polluted, as in this Gulf of Mexico oil spill, or you go to the beach for your medicine, for your therapy, and what you find there is trash in the waves, sometimes entangled in the turtles on the beach. Blue Mind goes out the window, then you go right back to Red Mind. So yet another reason to protect and restore and take care of our wild waterways and our forests. Very clear research on that phenomenon, the psychological benefits out the window when you spend your time cleaning up trash. And there was a time when I used to take my kids to the beach, and almost every time we do beach cleanups before we did anything else. And Julia, my younger daughter, when she was little, one day she said, "Dad, we don't like going to the beach with you very much." And I was like, oh, that's not good. That was my favorite thing, going to the beach with you and your sister. And she said, "And our friends don't like going to the beach with you either." She says, "It's disgusting and unjust." And so I got scolded, and I had to adjust where we would go to the beach. And I started choosing a beach that didn't need as much attention, oceanographic reasons that trash wasn't washing up or people weren't going there. So they would fall in love with going to the beach and going to the beach with me. And so I could pass that tradition along that my dad passed on along to us. Sometimes people go to the beach and they stay connected and they actually aren't there. They're staring at their screen. So they're taking their red mind and they're just moving it over to a different space. Well, that's better than nothing, but I think maybe we substitute out the smartphones or the dumb phones with a smart turtle. And I know there some laws and regulations and permits were possibly violated by touching noses with a turtle. I just want to make sure you all know that I know that. So thinking about Jeff, and he's like got he's got a life, and then like layers of life, and responsibility, family, and pets, and sometimes he has old trucks that break down, and kids, and responsible for a program. And so I wrote him a bluescription. And so this is the idea. I can write a bluescription, even though I'm just a turtle doctor. I can write it for you, and you can write it for your friends, because you can't OD on Blue Mind. And there are no side effects, no bad side effects. They're all positive. So I checked all the boxes for Jeff. Dr. Semenoff, this is your bluescription. I checked all the boxes. So do everything for 23 minutes a day. That's your bluescription. And you can do things simultaneously if you need to, but keep taking that walk by the water with the dog and keep getting your Blue Mind on. If you need a bluescription, get in touch. I'll send you one, or you can just make your own. So let's go back to these blue marbles. Grab your blue marble. Your homework assignment is to carry this blue marble with you wherever you may go until it strikes you that it's time to pass it on. And you'll know. It could be 10 years from now. It could be tomorrow. You may meet somebody that you want to say thank you to. But sharing these blue marbles, and we've shared over 1 million of them around the world, and they're being passed on. So it's a simple gesture of gratitude. And so they're gifts to you to say thank you for doing what you're doing. Carry it with you. Have it remind you to do your bluescription every day. Calm your mind, center your mind, and reconnect. And that can be in your bathtub or in your pond or your river, with a turtle, possibly without a turtle sometimes. And share the story. So if you work at this aquarium, I know there's some thinking about where we can apply Blue Mind in this facility. That's really exciting. If you have friends and family or coworkers, share this idea with them. Pass along the gratitude, because it's our superpower. Love and gratitude. Keep your Blue Mind on as often as possible, because we're going to need it. We got some rough patches ahead, clearly, in lots of different ways. We need to stay strong. We need to stay resilient and stay connected to the water here on planet Earth. So that's all I have to say this evening. I'd be happy to chat more. I don't know if we were going to do questions or not, or just go out and have a book signing. But please stay in touch. Do not drop your marble on your way out of the theater. Put it in someplace safe in your pocket. And really appreciate being able to share these stories with you. And see you soon. Thanks. I guess that's a no on the Q&A.
Hey everybody, just briefly, I was at the top there, just get your attention for just a moment here. Jay, well, first of all, this is not the end. We're going to be meeting out in the foyer or whatever it's called. Jay's got some books to sign, and I think it's going to be a great opportunity to follow up. We're not going to go into Q&A right now, but I really encourage you to talk with Jay afterwards. And again, I just want to thank everybody for coming. Dr. Wallace, J. Nichols, dude, thank you so much that was really inspirational. And I've got my blue prescription, and thanks. So everybody, and we'll see you right outside here. Thank you very much.